Oh, hey there. I didn't see you. My name is Travis, and I'm Stray Mother. I do pretty much everything in the band. It's really weird talking into a camera when nobody's there, but we're gonna try to get through it together. I'm gonna tell you about an album I wrote called Harm. I put it out in May of 2018, following an album I wasn't entirely proud of. I've gone back and remixed The Long Quiet Life, which is the album that preceded it, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about Harm, which is an album I'm very proud of. It's a little bit lo-fi in certain ways, but let's just begin. I'm having a nice cold blue moon. I have some Stray Mother paraphernalia behind me. Nice photographs of the crown, which was actually used in the album cover, the album art. And I'll just show you, hopefully you can see. This is my friend Bowen, that's the album cover. I guess the concept for that art was just to kind of have some kind of phantom. It was definitely, Harm was always going to be a darker album, even before a lot of events unfolded, which made me, kind of have to go out and write and expel what was in me to make that album. We're enjoying ourselves on this Tuesday afternoon. So the first track on Harm is a song called Prelude, and that one I actually started to put together even before the album before Harm was finished. The violins you hear at the beginning are actually violins from a track on the last track from The Long Quiet Life, the song is called, I don't fucking remember. It's the last song off The Long Quiet Life, and at the end there's this giant noisy outro, and it kind of falls away into this little orchestral piece, and there's violins in there that I played and recorded, and I put them at the beginning of Prelude in reverse, so you're just hearing the same thing in reverse. And the first thing you hear on the album is the recording of a bird which has gone extinct in Hawaii, and it's this bird's mating call, but he's pretty much the last of his kind, so no one's gonna answer him, and it's very you get this deep sense of loneliness right at the beginning of the album, and that drum beat. I remember being at work and just tapping on my desk, that like, and I had that idea even before I finished The Long Quiet Life, and I just thought this is going to be the first track off the next album, and it sets the tone for something much darker, even though not a lot of the songs are this big, noisy, screaming wall of death that happens in Prelude. And there is a lot going on. There's a lot of guitars and choir and shouting, and the lyrics actually, I guess I just have to get out of the way if I'm going to talk about lyrics at all. The pressing matter of Harm was I lost my mom December the year prior, so a lot of these songs just, came out of me. Prelude was a poem I had actually kind of written beforehand, but it fell into place, I think, thematically, and I changed things around. The first line, "Dear daughter of an evil man," is actually influenced by something you might not think it was. The band, the drums, the song is Book of Revelations. He says, "Darling, you are the son of an evil man," and that line is very important to my girlfriend, Steph. And I thought it would be very profound to put at the beginning obviously a lot of things that are addressed are kind of outward and about, dealing with grief, which I guess is an internal struggle, but it's I ventured outside of myself for that in a certain way. or I guess maybe that's the main struggle of a lot of the album, is learning to venture outside of yourself, and we'll get into that later. It's looking at just what it means to be a man, and you know, I can't really speak for how my mom saw her dad or anything, but he was a son of a bitch who lost his eye in a bar fight. I took that idea to look at, you know, myself and what it means to be a man, and what it means to have been raised by a mother, and to lose her. And the last line on that track is, "I wanted your face to be the last thing that I would ever see." And that was the last line off the first Stray Mother track, off the first EP, Lemon Hope. I say the same thing because it was supposed to be, you know, this desperate cry at the end of the song. Even back then, I wrote a lot of things, you know, with nostalgia in mind, and my mom in certain parts, and it just kind of came back full circle in this song. And the thing you hear at the end, you know, the song cuts off, you hear in one ear the dialysis machine she was hooked up to in the hospital, and then another device which was like a plasma separator for her blood, and she would sometimes be hooked up to these two different machines at different times of the day, but sometimes they would be at the same time, and you hear that at the end of the song. We're gonna be cutting some content here because I'm off the cuff right now. The next song you hear is "The Day You Died," and instrumentally I really approached it. I was really excited about some of the things Pianos Become the Teeth were doing and have been doing. More just kind of like fun rock songs, kind of, and a bittersweet feeling as opposed to just dire sadness. That's kind of what I attempted on that song, you know, fast punk rock guitars and a little trumpet section near the beginning, which is influenced by, of all things, the music from Super Mario 64. I think it might be a familiar chord progression if you listen to the kind of the credits sequence to that game. Maybe that's a stupid thing, and we could cut that too. I don't know. Maybe I'll keep everything in here and you could just listen. So that song, instrumentally, pretty straightforward, ends on a big, you know, something I'd written earlier, and I just thought, what if I just tack it to the end of the song? And that kind of changed the chord progression and everything in it. Big, you know, Death Heaven style tremolo black metal outro thing. Lyrically, is there much to say? I think it explains itself if you read the lyrics. I guess I was trying to, like I said, capture a bittersweet feeling and a kind of strange senses of serendipity and fate that you feel falling into place when something so humongous and you know, terrible happens in your life, but there's, you know, all the feelings under the surface kind of come up, and some of those are good feelings and nostalgic feelings, and like the part I talk about, we found a box of your favorite things, which we did find a box of her favorite things, and she had written a card to my dad, I guess from when they were dating, and it said happy 2-month anniversary. She kept that. She also kept a tape that I sample in certain parts of the album that was from, I guess, like when I was pretty much newborn almost. I was like a baby, and she just has some recordings of herself and me and my brothers. And that appears in different parts of the album. Now, the title track is Harm, if you could believe it. This is a song that I will say, I guess, that I co-wrote with my brother. It's gone through several different incarnations and ended up on this album. I think I always wanted it to be on this album. I think the concept for like this darker album has been floating around with me, you know, for a long time. Hold on. This is obviously a very a Stray Mother version of it. I wanted to do weird shit on this album, and I just went for it. I thought, you know, I could do whatever I want. Why wouldn't I do whatever I want? What you hear at the beginning, you hear different parts of the album. It's something that Sigaros kind of does, like guitar, violin bow, dragging it across a string like it's a bowed instrument, and you get this big, washy, atmospheric sound from that, and then we go into a cowboy ass part, where like bum ba da bum 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 bum. I love that, and that kind of came from when me and my brother were in a band called Blood Ronda with our friend Bowen, who you might remember is the man who is kind of the star of Harm in a way, because he's on the front of it, and that band was very kind of Swans U.S. Christmas, but a little bit country rock. I don't know. That makes it sound awful. That's not what it was like. It was a noisy rock band, and we wrote noisy rock parts, and I wanted to have a cowboy part in there where I hit a cowbell, and you hear cowbell, you hear awful out-of-tune violins, a kind of chant. Some of those lyrics my brother wrote, I guess the lyrics that are kind of the crux of the song, like Organon, do no harm, and we tear at each other's throats for dog meat scraps of love. Both of those lines, which are at the end of the song, and the big, but it's all building up to, my brother wrote. I wanted it, it's the title track because it's not a straightforward story like some of the other songs are about like specific events. The song is very thematic. It's very much about feelings towards the world and the fear that bad people don't get what they deserve, neither do good people. Everyone just is. Morals are a gray, muddled thing, but the thing that we can all agree on is, to cause as little harm as you can, and that in itself is still a complicated thing when it comes to stuff like love and family and doing what's best for yourself and others, and how you live in a very corrupt and fucked up world, which there's a lyric that comes up in that kind of middle cowboy section, which is from an older song called It's Not Your Fault, off The Long Quiet Life, where I say, actually I think in that album, David from Headstone delivered the lyrics, but they're, it's the line that ends with, they fill our hearts with hate and liquidate our teeth. That's what I remember. But, that whole midsection is absolutely fucking screaming about people who still treat the world like they can capitalize and profit off of people's suffering, or like my mom being in the hospital and coming in and trying to charge us things and telling us, you can do that, but it's going to be another $20,000. And just that, those people who are ruining the world and ruining everything for you and me, they're bad people. And they're not going to get what they deserve, and neither are we, and you have to learn to be at peace with that to a certain extent. Hello, I'm the ghost of Christmas future, editing the video and in retrospect adding things I forgot to mention. I just want to say how in the song Harm, and in a couple of songs I did something where I would record vocals through pedals to get certain effects, or especially like screaming, to get that real distorted effect. I'd put my vocals through a pedal, and one of those pedals was one that my bud Jack from King Bloom built. It's a fuzz pedal that he one of the first things he made, I think, and my girlfriend and I painted it. Some of the paint's coming off. Now the next song is called Glass Shores, and that is the closest I think to having written a love song before, even though instrumentally it's completely a mashup of Deaf Heaven's shoegaze black metal wall of sound and Foxing's twinkly Midwest emo orchestra come together. I'm very proud of a lot of the lyrics on there. It's very poetic. The chorus, the line "Dear daughter of an evil man" comes up again, because this time it's referencing to Steph, my girlfriend, instead of my mom, because there are a lot of terrible bad men in the world, and I'm one of them, I guess. Having a blue moon on a Tuesday afternoon.
I just wanted to bring up a lyric from Glass Shore, which is the fucking name of the song, which is Glass Shores, is inspired by Lord of the Rings. There's a part where Pippin asks Gandalf what happens when you die, and he says, "The grain rain curtain of this world pulls back, and all turns to silver glass. Then you see it, bright shores and a swift sunrise." And the best thing you can do when you're writing lyrics is steal ideas from other people. I'm just kidding. It's a beautiful line that obviously means a lot in the context of this album.
It's very, it's almost straightforward to me. It's just parts. It's a crescendo, and it's supposed to be, you know, beautiful and heartbreaking, and, you know, still in the background there's a specter of loss. Like, though the veil of death is overcast in gray, I still see a distant place where we drink from the stars in the glade, is what I say. I wrote that. Isn't that lovely? It's nice to be proud of yourself sometimes for things. The next song is called Moon Prayer, and this is an old song that I wrote before even the Please Come Home EP, and had been sitting on my computer ready to be recorded for a long time. Very inspired by Lear, the band Lear, inspired by Touche Amore in some ways. I love this song, just a short, very straightforward and poetic idea in there. At the end of the song, you get what I call, this is a secret, this is a Stray Mother's secret. If you're watching this far into the video, no one else would know about this but you. It's called the moon sound, that's what I call it, and it appears in a lot of my recorded music. I don't recall if it's in the Please Come Home EP, but it's somewhere in the Long Quiet Life if you want to look. It's in my older music if you are ever so desperate that you have to plunge into my instrumental shit and all that. But it's just this discordant thing I hit once, and I was like, that's not what I meant to play, but that sounds haunting. And there was a song off the first album I ever put out, just proto Stray Mother, where I just like had a drum beat that looped that sound, and hide it all over the place. It's for you to find. Not much else I could say about Moon Prayer, but the next song, Sana Sana, I feel like I could talk a bit more about. This song is obviously very Sigur Rós. Just a big wash of orchestral atmosphere and just amorphous direction. The samples you hear at the beginning of the song, the weird like moaning thing, is actually, my brother had a pedal called the Montreal Count to 5, and it's basically a pedal that samples, it just samples what you put through it, and you can just twist it and make it do weird things. And I was just experimenting and playing with it, and I tried to sing through it, and it did that, and I thought, well, that's going in there somewhere. I wanted to make a song without any guitar in it, although there's a little bit of guitar, because I do, again, the violin bow, only this time it's on an acoustic guitar, so you just hear like you hear that throughout the song. And the chorus, which is the song is named after Sana Sana, referencing a kind of little like, I guess, Spanish-Mexican rhyme. I'm gonna make an ass of myself if I try to say it, but I think it's about a frog. It's like Sana Sana la colita de la rana or something. like Heal Heal, like Tail the Frog, and it's just like it's like a song of healing is what it is, and that's like a cute kid's rhyme or whatever, and the song is, you know, a lot of the album's about stripping away who you are and reaching again that like central purity or whatever. I don't want to sound like a jackass or anything, but sometimes you have to be pretentious when you talk about your own art, or you're not really going to be able to explain what the fuck you were trying to do with it. And I'm trying to explain what the fuck I was trying to do with my art. I guess this whole album is just an attempt to get all the emotions out. And I think it taught me something, because I used to approach songwriting as a just the method was to make the saddest thing you could possibly do, because I thought that was like the most important emotion or something. But I didn't. Strangely, when like the saddest thing I could think of happened to me, I wasn't just feeling sadness, and there's so much more to pick at, and so much more that you need to express and get out of you, and sometimes that's something like a childlike sense of sadness and nostalgia, and the song taps into it a bit. And strangely, I wanted to sing. There's a verse where there's nothing but like violin and string bow, whatever. It's a very quiet verse where I kind of sing over it, and I wanted to sing it in Spanish at first, and I tried to have my friends help me translate the verse and make it sound good, and it, you know, I don't think I could have done that authentically. I think that was, you know, it's better that I didn't do that. I think it came out a little better. For some reason, I chose to kind of make reference to Andy Kaufman song, with the sky so full of song and the river so full of stars, or something like that. Again, just kind of tapping into a weird sense of humor almost is in there. And yeah, there's like a toy box kind of sound you hear that happens towards the beginning and at the end. That I literally, like, I wanted a toy box sound, and I just YouTubed like toy box or whatever. I went through a few, and I found that one. That sounds weird and haunting, and it just happened to be fit perfectly. You know, what are the odds? I know the song's very amorphous, but it was right. You know what else influenced me in that song that's kind of weird is like a part in like one of the last Harry Potter movies. There's this orchestral piece, and I heard that, and I just wanted something that sounded like it, and I got it in there. Next, we're doing The Lighthouse, which is very inspired by, I'd say directly, like Julian Baker, like that kind of beautiful, just one guitar, almost like a loop, and that's, you know, it's a hard song to talk about almost, because it's just so vulnerable and so speaks for itself in a lot of ways. I guess the symbolism of the lighthouse is just that, you know, for some reason my mom kind of liked lighthouses, and I chose to kind of use that as a metaphor for, you know, being guided by her, kind of, and the cliffside crumbles and the lighthouse is gone and you're left alone and fucking sick to death with grief. And again, I can't think of a terrible lot to say, because there's not much of a story behind that, other than I suppose I was working on that song like for a hot minute before I even started to write this album. A lot of the songs I actually did just kind of come together almost like in a month. Like usually when I record an album, I say, this is the month I'm going to record an album, and I just plan it, write half of it, do it. Half the songs have been things that just came out of me at the right time, and the other half are ones that I say, well, I got, songs A, B, C, D that feel this way and act this way to facilitate an album. And I want to write, a song like this and a song like that, and then I get different ideas and they come to me as I record, as opposed to, being in the back catalog. And this is almost a back catalog song, not quite as much as Moon Prayer, which I said is an ancient song. Very sparse instrumentally, drums don't come in until the end, only for that climax. And the sample you hear at the end of the song is actually when I first arrived to the hospital with my mom for her 20-day stay. And the nurses were just talking to her, and I don't know, I just felt like this is a strange moment. I feel like there's something happening right now, and I chose to pull out my phone and just record for a minute. And you hear the nurses kind of talking to her. And that leads into 517, which is, I remember when I wrote the chorus to 517, I was sitting in my room and my dad just kind of came and was talking to me about everything that was happening. As all of that was happening, I was just playing those chords, and I thought, acoustic song, I was playing acoustically, but it's just, I needed that song to turn into something that was, the desperate fucking gut-wrenching feeling of everything that was going on, and the panic and everything. So it just turned into a kind of screamo. It turned into just a straight up screamo song. I think of Old Grey, like the newest Old Grey album. I forget what it's called, but I think of that when I think of 517. And the name 517 refers to the room number my mom was staying in at the ICU. It was room 517. One of the most interesting lyrics to me in this song is when I say, I'm singing that Zeppelin song, All My Love to You. One morning I was just driving with my mom, and she loved like rock and roll and stuff, like Led Zeppelin, kind of classic rock bands. And that song, that annoying Led Zeppelin song, like all of my love, was playing, and I was just like, I don't like this song. This song's annoying. She explained to me what the song was about. It was about him like losing his son, and I just had to have a little bit more respect for it and think about it. As things happen to you, you're more open to different perspectives and different art even. And in that moment, obviously, I wanted to kind of express that I cared about that thing she told me about and understood it. And lyrically, very, poetic, and it's so vulnerable, it's so personal, it's so just horrible. I don't want to talk almost about some of the lyrics, but originally it was going to be more like an Every Time I Die song. It was going to be more sarcastic, and that line, I'll give you my hands, was going to be, I'll give you my hands and never touch the axe again. Like you could take my hands to have her back. I'll never play music again. I'll give it up if I just have her back, you know what I mean? And I didn't feel that when I came down to writing it. It turned into a much different song, I think, than it could have been. I think this whole album turned into something different than it could have been. It could have been a more like metal-y album if certain things didn't happen. Could have turned into something where I could have been more goofy and sarcastic, and maybe next time I'll play with those feelings and ideas, but this time, forgive me for not wanting to go there. Wanted to talk a bit more about, I guess, instrumentals in 517, and particularly like the slide guitar. I just like a lot, and is reminiscent of something from like The Lack Long After by Pianos Become the Teeth. Tried to tone back some of the distortion on the guitars, because prior to this, like my setup for distortion was always I'd run it through like my guitar through an overdrive and a fuzz
to get my distortion as a bit much. So like 517, like I told you, it started kind of out as an acoustic song, so I wanted a little bit more clarity and sharpness in the guitar sound. So this song and a couple of the other ones, I tried to tone back the fuzziness. Also, in 517, you hear at the end some recordings of like rain and nature and stuff, and that's been something I've done a lot in my work. But even the like heavy part before, you hear kind of like an atmospheric element running through it, and of course, there's stuff like that throughout the album and throughout everything I make.
I'm off my fucking rocker with the Blue Moon. Uh, Good night. First line lyrically is from I think one of the last Peanuts comic strips. My mom liked Peanuts, Charlie Brown and all of them, and it's just a scene of everybody getting ready to go home. And again, it's that like bittersweet feeling of you have to say goodbye at some point. Your day's over at some point. I love this song. I wish I should just maybe I will hype this song up more. It's a beautiful. It goes from like a American football song with kind of like keep you era pianos become the teeth into like almost a counterpart song at the end, and that's just where it went, I think, naturally. Like a lot of these, I think the songs that don't come to me naturally, that I have to kind of force myself to make, are songs that are verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre. I haven't written it up to this point, up to the point that I did Harm. New stuff is going to be different. It's going to be very different. But up to the point that I did Harm, I had never done a pre-chorus, I don't think. You guys should just chug this. Let's do it. Oh, isn't that much left? Somebody's doing yard work. Verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro. I don't do that usually. I write songs that kind of start one place and somewhere else, and in between there's an adventure of emotions. Please Come Home, is a good example of that. I love that song. Blue Moon's a great beer. It's a great brew. I always had a lot of faith in this song. That's why I put it so far towards the end, is because it, on maybe somebody who has less insane, grandiose ideas would put this as the last song, because it's so climactic and ties things up thematically, talking about the circuit of greed being smashed to pieces, like circuit of harm, I should say, which is the album. It's called Harm. And just the idea that you still have memories, and I think even if you don't have memories, you can't change the fact that these things happen. You can't change the fact that good and bad things happen. You cherish the good things and say damn to the bad things. Just kind of the mantra of the album, almost. Back to the song like Harm, it says like, to the good no reward, and to the wicked no remorse. Like I said, good people don't get what they deserve, and neither do bad people. And if you're stuck in a world like that, you have to cherish the good things, because that means there are good things, I suppose. The sample towards the end of the song is by Mississippi John Hurt. He's playing Will the Circle Be Unbroken? Again, tying to that cycle of harm.
A lot of the orchestral sounds in this album, and some of the other stuff I've done too, some of it is kind of like plugins. If you don't know what that is, basically just like fake or pre-recorded like violins and trumpets and other orchestral instruments. But a lot of it is actually just guitar, like distorted, very reverberated. I have a pedal actually that does straight up orchestral sounds and one that does like organ sounds that I run my guitar through. That's how I get a lot of the big orchestral pieces like you hear at the end of Goodnight.
The song kind of leads into our last track, our last main track, because there's a track after it. The last main track, which is the last Long Bright Dark. The Long Bright Dark is the name of the first episode of True Detective. Love True Detective. You got Matthew McConaughey, you have Woody Harrelson, you have them straight up copying ideas and dialogue from Thomas Ligotti. It's amazing. It's a wonderful show. I'll let you borrow it on Blu-ray if you ask me. Come and ask me, and I'll let you borrow the first season of True Detective on Blu-ray. That is important that I talk about that because there's a big sample in the middle of it, which is from the last episode of True Detective, and just him, talking about. I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen the show, but I guess it's self-explanatory in a way about just going from deep, dark well of nihilism to just seeing all you need is that slight glimmer of hope that makes you believe that there's something more than just fucking abject misery. This song is maybe surprisingly from deep in the catalog. This is a almost practically brand new version. This is when I talk about proto Stray Mother, I mean from before the Please Come Home EP. I would record things and just kind of put them out as I finished them, and I had a lot more time and gusto to record back then. And I had a song called The Long Bright Dark, which the like sample and like all the like little haunting like swells and such are I did because that seems perfect because there's absolutely no soundtrack or anything other than I think there's like a emergency vehicle in the background or something. I did all that, and as opposed to redoing it all for the new version of the song, I just decided to literally like pluck it out of that old version that I did in like 2015 or something. I think I put out that old song in like January 2015 when I got my first job. Got my first job in January 2015. I didn't want to redo all of it. I thought it was perfect how it was. I just cut it, pasted it, and it's in the new version of the song. I think I'm gonna put out a whole video where I talk about my process of recording the song, like instrumentally, very experimental, like doors slamming, keys jingling, shit like that. So I think you'll get to see a bit of that. Other than that, lyrically, those are old lyrics I feel like I wrote. And they're definitely important to me in a big way. And I think, other than when you get to the latter half of the song, obviously those are kind of fresh from the theme of the album. And I think one of the most important lines, and I'm going to stick to, I thought I might not stick to it, but it says, there's no more woe is me. After this, there's no more woe is me. So Dark Stray Mother, for the time being, is, it's this album. It's the album before it, maybe. I'm going to try to revive feelings from that, like, please come home. But I just can't seem to just wallow in my own misery anymore. I think I can't do that. I can't do that lyrically or musically. I think shows no growth, and I think it's sometimes hard to relate to somebody who thinks the only thing that they can feel is misery. And I'm kind of done with that. Like I said, this album, there's a lot more feeling. I found that in the deepest, pits of grief, there's different. You feel something other than just grief and misery. And I think that's the lesson I learned from this album. The last lines you hear are, I know, it's love in the end, which is, kind of the way The Long Quiet Life ended. I don't know how accessible that album's going to be after soon, because I intend to do it restructuring. I want to say rebranding, because fuck that, but reimagining of Stray Mother in a way, and Long Quiet Life isn't going to be a part of that. Harm will be, because I can't get rid of this album. It's too important to me. But I know it's love in the end was kind of the theme of that album, but I think it's the theme of Stray Mother, and I think it always will be in there. It's funny, something else that inspired me is, have you ever seen Star Wars? The movie Rogue One, there's the kind of like monk fighter class type dude, and he always says, "I am one with the Force." He says that. And then at the end of the movie, his friend, I don't want to spoil it. If you haven't seen it, skip ahead a minute. But he dies, and his friend's holding him, and he says, "I'm one with the Force. I'm one with the Force. And the Force is with me," or something like he takes the phrase and then kind of turns it around. And I think that's like one of the... It's so sad. And that stuck with me, and that's kind of what I did. I say, I know it's love in the end. And in the end, it's love. Just because I want the last lyric to be love. Because we could get all sarcastic and ironic and afraid to speak about our emotions, but love is, I think, the only thing that makes anything matter. It's the only thing that gives you hope. It's love. It's abstract. The fact that abstract thing exists makes everything matter. In the face of an album called Harm, just about the terrible grief that can befall anybody and will befall you. It befalls everybody. That sounds like a threat. It will befall you, but everybody experiences it. It's still love. That's the most important thing in the end. The little piano. I love the piano at the end. I added it just to kind of fill out, as if that super noisy part at the end needed to be filled out more. I thought, hey, this could use some piano. I wrote that, and I loved it so much I threw it at the end. I should also... What's the name of that band? Is it like Page Lost or something? And they have a song called like Prahanian, and it has a similar chord progression, and it has that ringing, the ding ding, that I straight up fucking lifted, to be honest. Almost. But it's in my song. It's in The Last Long Bright Dark. I think I was kind of talking about that before. There's actually two different incarnations of that. There's from Proto Stray Mother, there's The Last Long Bright Dark, and then the Long Bright Dark, and then the last one's The Last Long Bright Dark. And those are from prior adventures that you'll probably never hear, to be honest. The last song, which is simply titled I Miss You, a song I originally wrote for my girlfriend, Steph, but I wrote it just before and as my mom was at the hospital, and as I was putting this album together, I just thought, this feeling is so what I'm feeling, and how I want to end the album is with this song. And I rearranged it a little bit, cleaned it up a little bit. It's supposed to be a pretty song, but there's darkness to it underneath, or sadness, I guess. Maybe not darkness, just grief and nostalgia. And like I said, it ends on that tape that I talked about way earlier, and just my mom talking to me as a baby. I found a part on the tape where she's talking about my grandpa who died, and it felt weirdly prescient's the word, I don't know, is prescient the word, salient, important, felt important, there we go, felt right to kind of put it in there. It almost felt like she was talking about herself in a weird way. Like she just says, life goes on and time passes. That's kind of how things end, and it just ends on that bird again, that lonely bird that we heard at the beginning of the album. It's at the end of the album. Because it's still that sense of, emptiness somewhere. Sounds like a terrible note to end on, but it's it's a pretty song if you listen to it by itself. I wonder if adding context to this album is even the right thing to do. Any art. That's another idiotic discussion, isn't it? To add context? Is art's dead? No. If I drink more of these, I'll die. I drink responsibly. I literally would not have been drinking this if it weren't for this video. I just thought it would be a funny gag, but now I absolutely fucking wasted off one blue moon. So that was Harm. That was the album Harm. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope this video comes together nicely, and hope you can listen to the album and think about it a bit in a different light, in the light of the fool and dingus who made it. I made it for myself. To be honest, I make a lot of music for myself. A lot of most of my music's just kind of for myself. I think maybe I can make a video or something where I talk about the future of Stray Mother, but it's not going to sound like this anymore. I told you I'm going to hold myself to the no more woe is me thing. Anything I'm going to hold myself to thinking outside of myself when it comes to music and just writing. I'm very proud of this album, but I couldn't do this again. You know what I mean? Harm is something. It's something I stole from my brother. He wrote an album called Harm, and I must have subconsciously attached to that when we wrote this song together and thought it would be great to write an album called Harm. Isn't that so thought-provoking? Cool. My brother already did it? Well, whatever. Yeah, I hope if you've gotten this far, it must mean you care a little bit about the stuff I make, and that's super sweet and special to me, and I appreciate it, and I thank you very much for watching. But if you're gonna go out and buy beers after this, I suggest you get Blue Moon, Belgian White. It's got Valencia orange, made with Valencia orange peel. It's a brand deal. They paid me $700 to do this. I didn't want to do it, but they made me do it. Until next time, maybe you'll see more content from me. I love you. I love you. Thank you for watching.